Okay, I was asked if I could show what's inside the push rod area. So, without further ado, we'll take a look inside and I'll try to explain it to you. Okay, if you look here, this is the compression spar, and this is glued to the two 3/16 spars here. We have the shear webbing from side to side. I have a brace on top of this rib. There's no need for it. It's just I just been doing it for a while. And the Bellcrank is suspended on an 1/8" piece of piano wire, and it's sandwiched with a piece of fuel line tubing, then a wheel collar, then a washer, then the Bellcrank, then a washer, then a wheel collar, and a piece of tubing, so that the Bellcrank floats in there, but it's tight. You know, it's not floating, so to speak, but it's spaced with the fuel line tubing. So the only thing that's holding this Bellcrank in right now is this right here, and it's spaced. And how I set the push rods is I zero out the Bellcrank, and I zero out the flaps, and I slide the push rod back and forth. I cut the carbon fiber tubing to length so that I can slide that back and forth. I put the JB weld on it, slide it back and forth, and I'm going to let that dry. And after it dries, will be sometime tomorrow, I have some Kevlar thread right here that I will wrap that push rod end so that there's no splitting. Then I'll put a drop or two of epoxy on that so that it can't split, and that's the same with this end as well. Now I've just done one end on this push rod because I don't want to do the other end until I have the stabilizer and elevators in. That way I can adjust the push rod length so that the flaps are zero and the elevators are zero without any twisting or fiddling or monkeying around. So it's like a telescoping rod here. I can move this in and out. This Tom Morris no longer sells the titanium ends, so this is just grade 8 all thread 440, and it's slipped in this carbon tube with JB weld packed inside. So it's not going anywhere, but there's no longer titanium ends that you couldn't adjust. So I don't know, this is probably just as good. I haven't lost any airplanes like this yet, so we'll see. But I was asked by, I think it was Charles, that wanted to know how that was done. So that's what I've come up with. And after this is dry, I'll clearance the hole for the push rod here, and then glue this down, and the wing will be all done. We can start doping. It's pretty much there's a little bit of detail sanding left to do, maybe a half an hour of detail sanding before I put the first coats of dope on it. Wing tips are a little bit different on this particular job. Okay, the wing tip is a piece of 1/2 inch, and then I've laid pieces of 3/8 on top of the 1/2 inch so that it's the same height as the trailing edge all the way around, and then sanded them around, and then the blocking up here on the tip. So I could take a router bit and route the inside a little bit, and I might do that before I go, but the weight savings is, you know, might be you might get a 1/2 gram out of the tip or whatever, but it's not going to be no big weight savings. The whole wing was built with 4.5 pound wood. So the flaps are in the 10 gram range. I've seen people say that flaps need to weigh an ounce or 3 ounces like ours. I think these are 10 grams a piece. So everything's pretty light, about as light as you can make it. And heck, we'll just hope for the best on this one. I did make a mistake on the weight box on the outboard side where I fell asleep at the switch. I made that rookie mistake where I cut the wingtip weight box in the top of the wing, not paying attention. But fortunately, I caught it before I got all the way done and just held the thing back down and wicked some CA around it, and it glued right back, and then flipped the wing over and did the bottom half. So you won't be able to tell the difference when it's finished. I can't feel it, so if you can't feel it, you're not going to see it. So that's basically how I get the flaps going. These are the pocket hinges on this airplane, where everything's at 3/16 off the trailing edge, but the pocket is cupped just exactly like the stabilizer. So that's how that works. It's a good system, I think. It's they're really free. They flop around. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 hinge points per flap, and 3 hinge points per elevator. So that works real great, and the controls are real free, and they just flop. And that's the way you want them. So anyway, I hope you got something out of the way I do the Bellcrank setup and the push rod. And want to see something else, just drop it in the comment section or send me a message on Stunt Hanger. So see you on the next one.